you must be Peter. I'm Alan Johnson, Head of Research and Development. Why don't you have a seat over here? We can get started with your interview.
Alright.
Alright, let's get started, shall we? Before we begin with the real interview, I have a few preliminary questions. First, why are you here? Why Armor Brand Armor?
I guess I've just always had an interest in body armor. It plays a huge role in changing society, in wartime with soldiers and in peacetime with police officers as well.
Let's go ahead and take a look at your qualifications. It says here, Cal Poly Materials Engineering. It's pretty impressive. So what got you into body armor specifically?
I guess I've always just felt that rather than weapons, armor is a morally justifiable position. You can't hurt people with armor.
Good. But, even good body armor can give an edge to dangerous people. Have you ever thought about how a good defense can contribute to an efficient war machine?
I guess I hadn't.
Why don't I show you an introductory video for our company, just to get you acquainted with what we do here at Armor Brand Armor.
In today's modern society, many folks are expecting to be under light to heavy gunfire. Others just want to be sleek, sexy, and bulletproof. And it's becoming increasingly common for supersonic shrapnel to be part of the daily working environment and/or home life. Hi, I'm Dr. Liam Simplefellow of Armor Brand Armor, because chances are you'll be taking some heavy fire. You're probably already well acquainted with our products. What you're probably less familiar with is the amount of sciencing our sciencers have to do to bring you top quality impenetrables. We've been here for a long time, so let's start from the beginning. Around 4,000 Around 4000 BC, we came out with our first ever product, lamellar armor. Now it's time for my favorite segment, processing, structure, properties, and performance, where I analyze the processing, structure, properties, and performance of a material. For lamellar armor, I would begin with the skin of a dead animal. Now it's very important to scrape off all the fur and all the fat before beginning. But once we had a clean skin sample, we would soak it and allow it to dry for a few days, stretching it as it did so. Now the stretching and drying process is very important because it makes the skin very light and very hard as the individual cells become stretched out and dried out. It's then cut into many pieces, and those pieces are lashed together with leather strips. This makes it very flexible and very tough on the battlefield, perfect for thwarting those pesky arrows. Now one very unfortunate day around 3000 BC, a customer came to me and he told me that he had been repeatedly stabbed with a shiny new weapon, and that his lamellar armor had no effect. Now, as it turns out, the situation was getting pretty real on the battlefront, and that the new wave was here, and the new wave was bronze. So I took it upon myself to create a new style of armor that could counter the effects of this new weaponry. Now, on the technical level, bronze was really the first metal that we were able to work and harden at our leisure. For around 30% tin in copper, we only needed fires around 800 degrees Celsius to cast it, which was accomplished easily enough with only a few bellows. Once it had been cast, it could be sent to the blacksmith and formed into nearly any shape we wanted. We decided to go with a design of individual plates that could be strapped around the body, creating the first ever plated armor. One of the things that makes bronze so great is solid solution hardening, which means that the alloy is much harder than either of its components. If we threw in a little bit of lead into the mix, we also got the benefits of precipitation hardening, which provided further strain on the atomic lattice. Lastly, the hammer working from the blacksmith increased the dislocation densities. All of this led to a material that had a very high Young's modulus, tensile strength, and yield strength, making it very resistant to brutal beating and metal weaponry. After 2,000 years of bronze, we were able to move on to something better, steel. The main challenge of forming armor from steel was the high temperature needed to cast it. However, we eventually figured it out. With a high enough carbon concentration within the iron, we can lower the melting temperature down to roughly 1200 degrees Celsius. And with the latest and greatest in furnace technology, that's very possible. Steel has many of the same strengthening mechanisms as bronze. However, the difference in size between the constituent elements is much more pronounced in steel, meaning that it has a higher lattice strength and it makes it a naturally stronger material. And as the story would have it, along comes gunfire. And for a long period of time, we're mixing and matching between lamellar armor and plate armor and chainmail, trying to find something that is effective against guns. Until one day in the late 1960s when Kevlar was accidentally discovered. Kevlar is a polymer formed from its individual individual monomers sewed together in a sulfuric acid bath. Once the polymers have been formed, they're spun out of the bath into the individual strands, which are woven together into the yarn. The yarn can form any manner of garment. The reason that Kevlar is so effective against bullets is that polymers have very little room to slide past each other. This means that it has a very high elastic modulus as well as a very high tensile strength. So while it may not be stab resistant, it is very effective against most small caliber weaponry. So as you can clearly see, the field of armor is an exceedingly dynamic field, requiring today's top engineers bringing the latest materials and the latest technologies to the table. Science is doing some serious sciencing to protect the modern people in our increasingly ballistic society. Sciencers exactly like you. Armor brand armor, because chances are you're going to be taking some heavy fire.
Wow, it's amazing how much sciencing goes into such simple things.
Indeed. Now we just have a couple more questions before we're out of here. First, can you give me an example of how body armor has changed the course of history?
Well, ancient Greece is a good example. Alexander the Great of the Macedonians. Part of what contributed to his amazing success in his great conquest across Asia and Europe is the fact that he had begun outfitting his army with crude iron and steel armors, completely obsolescing the bronze weapons of his foes.
And what about culturally? What was the significance of body armor?
Huge. Body armor can be a status symbol. Like Book 17 of the Iliad, Achilles, refusing to join battle, is asked by his good friend Patroclus if he can wear Achilles' armor out on the battlefield. This way, the Trojans, believing they have the commander, will be able to win the fight.
Now, what about environmental concerns? How has armor production impacted the environment?
The environmental concerns, I didn't really think there were any.
You'd be surprised. Here at Armor Brand Armor, we've developed a new business model that takes environmental concerns into account. You ever heard of the triple bottom line? You know what? Walk with me.